Our first speaker of the evening is Dr. Jessica Barlow. Jessica is a professor at SDSU. She's a linguist by training, but she also serves as the executive director of the Center for Regional Sustainability at SDSU, where she oversees programming that addresses social, economic, and environmental challenges of our region, which is what you'll hear about tonight. She also really likes birds. She's going to be giving us a talk called A Sage Model for Helping to Make the World a Better Place. And now it is my honor to please introduce Dr. Jessica Barlow.
Thank you so much. I'm really excited to be here. I love Nerd Nite, and I'm happy to be presenting. I'm looking forward to the other presentations this evening. So I'm going to tell you about this program that we have at San Diego State University called the SAGE Project. And it's part of an international effort to connect knowledge to practice through community engagement. And it is really transformed my life in a bunch of different ways, both personally and professionally, which is why I'm excited to tell you about it. Just to clarify what I mean by that is I sort of view my life as before SAGE and after SAGE, because I feel like I'm a much different, more engaged person now. And it has everything to do with participating in city university collaborations, like I'm going to tell you about, that where we collaborate to make the world a better place. So to start, I'm going to talk a little bit about what the challenges are with connecting knowledge to practice. So it's from the perspective of cities in particular. Cities typically have a challenge accessing new knowledge because of lack of capacity. So there are tons of reports and toolkits and calculators and resources out there that are designed specifically for cities to address their complex, vexing challenges related to social, economic, and environmental needs. And these toolkits and resources are made by national and international agencies that sole purpose is to help support cities in this way. But are cities really accessing these? A lot of them have a lot of difficulty doing that simply because of limited capacity. They simply do not have the staff or the money or the time to access this new knowledge, these cutting edge or best practices, and not only access it, but also figure out how to apply them in a context specific way that addresses their own local environmental, socioeconomic, and cultural needs. On top of that, cities tend to be risk averse. City staff and council members don't have the political wiggle room to be able to try bold new ideas for addressing a lot of the complex challenges that we face. They're already being yelled at every single day, all day long. Why would they want to have more of that happen? Universities have sort of complementary qualities. They have excess capacity in the form of students, thousands of students who want to make a difference in the world. They want the stuff that they're learning in their classes to be meaningful and relevant. They want to do real world projects. They want hands-on experiences. They want change to happen yesterday. And universities generally are in the business of generating knowledge, right? They have unlimited access to new knowledge. They're co-creating it, and they are by nature innovation seeking. So the question is, how can we link these two things in an efficient way? And so this brings us to a very radically simple question that came up at the University of Oregon with some of my now colleagues who, about 5 professors, friends, sitting around drinking beer together, thinking about how they could, and they're from very different disciplines, they were thinking about how they could collaborate together on a project through their research. Maybe they could combine their work on some common project and work together. And it seemed a little bit too complicated because of the directions that their research was taking at the time. So for the short term, it seemed too complicated. So then they shifted focus and thought, well, maybe we can all just teach our courses and focus on a common project. And so this is where this radically simple question comes up of, what if we connect existing university instructors who are teaching existing courses that are already part of their teaching loads, and match them with existing local high need, high priority projects in the community, and then do it at a scale that maximizes value for all. And so this simple idea has now transformed into a really big idea that involves on the campus dozens of faculty, hundreds of students, many projects, and making a really big impact on local communities. And we call this model now the EPIC model, EPIC standing for Educational Partnerships for Innovation in Communities. And that's too much to say, so we call it the EPIC model. And this is a model of city-university partnership that is transforming higher education and is being replicated across universities across the US and internationally. Now, certainly city-university partnerships are not new, they're common, they've been around for a very long time, but this model is different in a number of really important ways. First of all, it is the university is not simply doing work in the city or for the city, but they're actually doing work with the city, in collaboration with the city on existing city projects. These are city projects that are already a part of their general plan, already considered, already on the budget, already high priority, high need projects that the city really does want help with. And those are matched with faculty in their courses, existing faculty, existing courses, classes that are already going to be taught anyway. And these are courses from across disciplines on campus. So it's an interdisciplinary and a multidisciplinary approach to addressing complex challenges in our communities. And so the city staff come to campus, meet with the students, present their challenges, present their demographics, present the context, present their aspirations, their goals. And then the students in turn take that information and take the resources that the city has already available to them and comes up with does research and comes up with identifying the best practices and design solutions, recommendations that then are applied, that can be applied by the city partner in a local context specific way. And this model is working within the organizational structures of cities and universities. So that's nothing new that's being created. These things already exist. We're just bringing them together. And it's scaled for impact. It's happening on a massive scale, which is why we say it's a win-win-win-win situation. And what do I mean by massive scale? So if you consider a typical partnership year, a single year partnership between the city and the university, the city proposes maybe 15 projects to the university, and those are matched with faculty, maybe 20 different faculty members teaching 25 courses total, enrolling students from across campus from 10 to 12 different disciplines, 500 or more students involved in these projects, dedicating collectively tens of thousands of hours of effort toward a single community in a single year on projects that are high need, high priority. Now, the city pays a fee for this partnership. It's important that they have skin in the game because they need to be as invested in the outcome of the project as the university and the students are. And so if they're invested in it and they're paying a fee, they're going to be worried and concerned about the outcome. It's not a lot. In fact, cities are usually accustomed to paying a lot more than what they pay for this kind of partnership, but it's just enough to make them invested. And that what they're paying for is the coordination of these 25 classes, these 500 students, so that we don't have 500 students calling the city or worse, 500 students submitting reports to the city. Instead, we have liaisons that control the flow of information so that the city is not inundated and the students are getting the resources they need. And then we have someone coordinating the field trips and the visits to the campus by the city staff, and then we generate these reports that serve as the deliverables to the city partner. So what started as a simple idea, small idea at the University of Oregon has now transformed into this model of campus community partnerships that is expanding across the world. It's not in the US, but also in sub-Saharan Africa, Brazil, Mexico, Israel. And together, all of these universities form a network that we call the EPIC network. And it's a nonprofit organization where our focus is to transform higher education for a community good. And so I'm going to tell you about the replication of this model locally here in San Diego at San Diego State University. We were one of the early adopters of the model in 2013. We work specifically with cities to address social, economic, and environmental challenges, with the ultimate goal of wanting to help improve the quality of life of community members in the region. And so so far, so we launched in 2013. We've worked with the cities of National City, San Diego, Santee, Lemon Grove, Tijuana. Currently, we're wrapping up our partnership with the city of La Mesa. We've also worked with some non-governmental agencies as well in the community. We still are connected with our community partners, even though the official partnership is over. And to date, we've had 32 different disciplines from across campus participate. I've listed them all here. You don't need to see them all if you can't see them all, but there's 32. And there's some of the usual ones that you might expect, like city planning, public administration, civil engineering. But then we also have some ones that you may not expect to see, like audiology or rhetoric and writing studies. These are some disciplines that city staff, experts typically from these areas are not working with cities. And so they're offering a unique perspective in unique solutions, or perspectives on solutions for our city partners in addressing these complex challenges of our communities. So I'm going to tell you about some of our projects that we've done with our community partners over the years. One of them is looking at mapping city assets and coming up with designs and recommendations for development or redevelopment. We do a lot of geographic information systems mapping of city assets. So we map park assets, all the benches and slides and trash cans and things like that, stormwater drains. We've mapped 20,000 trees in Lemon Grove. We've also mapped all of the street segments in Lemon Grove and then made recommendations to the city about ideal locations for bicycle connectivity. In terms of, so we've done a lot with cities related to climate action as well in terms of their resilience and adaptation planning. So we're looking at, we've done stormwater runoff studies. We have evaluated air, noise, and water pollution, made recommendations to cities about how they can reduce greenhouse gas emissions in different ways. And with La Mesa, for example, we are looking at strategies to help the city implement zero waste initiatives and active transportation. We have worked with a number of cities on community garden projects. These are especially fun because it involves a lot of work with community members, getting their buy-in and their investment in what their ideas are and how they want to be engaged. And this increases the long-term sustainability of these projects because we want the long-term investment of community members in community gardens. That's critical to their survival. And our students have created designs for these different gardens that have been directly informed by community members. They provided their feedback on these designs and locate, things like locations and things like that. We've even done a project on craft beer. So at the time that we partnered with the city of National City, there really was not much of a presence of craft beer industry in the city. This is obviously a huge economic boon to the whole region that San Diego is known for craft beer. And so we were looking at what ways the city could bring the industry to them, looking at things like, are there any policy issues that are preventing craft breweries from wanting to come in, but also looking at ideal locations for tasting rooms or distribution centers or breweries. So we worked on that. We have a professional certificate in the business of craft beer at San Diego State, so they were involved. And not surprisingly, cities have a lot of challenges with homelessness, and especially in our region. And most of the cities that we have worked with have asked us to look at some aspect of how they're dealing with homelessness, either reaching out to homeless individuals directly to get their input about their experiences with different types of programs. We evaluate existing programs and also make recommendations for policy and outreach, either new initiatives or ways to improve initiatives. And related to this, these last two examples is this connection with community. So one of the great things about this model, working with this campus community partnership model, is that students have a way of engaging marginalized community members in a way that city staff really are challenged with. So city staff often have difficulty reaching certain community members or groups because of trust issues or even language or cultural barriers. And students at SDSU represent these communities. They are from these communities. We're working on cities where they grew up, and even if they aren't from these communities, students just tend to be disarming, and they tend to be this neutral third party that makes community members feel more open to sharing what their views are, their perspectives are, what their wants and needs are. And so this is a way for community members to feel empowered because they're feeling heard, they have a voice, and they are contributing to decision making that's happening at the city level, with the students acting as go-between. And we've also done a number of projects related to public art. So here are two examples of murals that our SAGE project students designed. We had a class that each student was required to come up with some mural designs after researching the community. So they went to the city, looked at what the values of the city were, purchased something from one of the local businesses, and got a sense of what the aspirations and goals and needs are, and then designed some murals. And the city picked two that you see here that they liked, and our SAGE project students got to participate in the installation alongside the community members who also got to become invested in the experience. So a wonderful thing about public art is that it provides a sense of place. And when you have a sense of place, you also have a sense of community. And then if you're involved in the actual installation of public art, that sense of community is that much stronger. And so I'm talking about impact now. And first we can talk about numbers. So SAGE Project since 2013 has engaged over 3,600 students and on over 60 different projects. I mentioned 32 different disciplines. Collectively, we estimate that they dedicated over 200,000 hours of effort toward communities in the San Diego region, which is amazing. And students are getting hands-on real-world experiences. They're able to enter the workforce with knowledge about what local communities need. It helps enhance their critical thinking and problem-solving skills. And the impact on the cities is also great. So in terms of the funds, yeah, I mentioned they do have to pay a fee for the partnership. For one of the projects that we did with the city of National City, we worked on a wayfinding signage project, and that single project helped the city ultimately get over $1 million in competitive grants for wayfinding signage. With the city of Lemon Grove, who has received several awards for their partnership with us, they estimate they received an 800% return on the initial investment with us. But it's more about, it's more than just the numbers, it's more than money. It's the value add of this model is the positive press. It's the attention of hundreds of people at the university coming together with a community and connecting with one another. When universities play an active role as collaborators with universities with communities in translating knowledge to practice, they're also in turn informed by these local challenges, right? Those complexities that show how best practice looks a little different in a specific place, and why something may or may not work as well as we predict it would. And that in turn informs the researchers, who can then take new directions with their research programs to address best practices in light of these specific challenges. It also allows faculty to come up with new programs and initiatives, like we've done with sister programs that have launched in direct response to these projects that we've worked on. So we have now SEVI, which is the Social and Economic Vulnerabilities Initiative, which addresses homelessness and housing insecurity. And then we have Brightside Produce Distribution, which focuses on food insecurity. These are a direct response to the challenges that our city community partners have been presented with us with. So universities are always looking for opportunities to engage students in what are called high impact practices. These are the things that we know keep students in school and get more, and ultimately, make them better citizens, better prepared to enter the workforce. These high impact practices are things like volunteerism, student internships, service learning, study abroad, research, and community engagement, of course, which can intersect all of those things. Who are the people that are most likely to benefit from high impact practices? They're the very students who are not engaging in them, because these types of practices tend to be extracurricular activities, things they do outside of the classroom, which requires that they have the time and money to do that. In other words, privilege. First generation students, students who are working full time, students who have families or caring for loved ones. These are the types of students that typically don't engage in high impact practices or extracurricular activities specifically, but they're the ones who stand to get the most out of the experience. And with that it comes privilege. This model, SAGE and other EPIC model programs like this, get around that access disparity by infusing the high impact practices directly into the courses that students are going to sign up for anyway. This is why we want to transform higher education. Right. Now, I mentioned earlier that at the very beginning that I think of my life as sort of before SAGE and after SAGE. Before SAGE, I was not the type to participate in community engagement or community efforts or volunteerism. In high school and college, I didn't participate in any kind of extracurricular activities, although I had the privilege to do so. And when I became a professor, I was always so much in awe of all the students with how engaged they were in all these different types of extracurricular activities. I thought, wow, where did they get the motivation? But then I was presented with this opportunity to launch this program, the SAGE project, that infuses community engagement directly into the curriculum and focusing on making the world a better place. And I thought, oh, this is cool. Maybe I'm going to try and make this happen. And now I get it, right? I know where that motivation comes from. And now I see how the experience has transformed me, not just professionally because I'm running this program, but also, and I think more importantly, it has transformed me personally. When I first got involved, I really didn't expect to be impacted the way I have been. I thought it was going to be really busy, which I am, busy doing good work, which is fine and good. But now I find that I'm just far more engaged. In doing volunteerism, community service, even simply just paying attention to local decision making, local efforts, local needs, the ways communities come together or not in crises, from how streets are designed, whether porous pavers are used in landscape architecture, why bike lanes are put on one street but not another. I even think about how I think a little more carefully about how these new slow streets have been installed temporarily in San Diego due to the pandemic and the increased walking and biking in urban areas, and also the need to maintain social distance. So transforming higher education doesn't just impact students, it also impacts community members, it impacts people like me. So when we engage with our communities, we become invested in them. We see the value that our efforts have in real, tangible, meaningful ways because of that human connection that we have. And we're more knowledgeable about our community needs. We're more understanding about what the local challenges are in addressing those issues, whether they're environmental, social, or economic, or the intersection of all of those things. And we tend to want to do more. This is why we need to transform higher education. Thank you.
All right, Zed, I believe you're about to field some questions from the audience.
Okay, we have some really good questions here. That was a great presentation, Jessica. I think the world needs more people like you, honestly.
Oh,
I just
thank
love
you.
how, this gives a great sense of purpose to a lot of students who need this desperately, and everyone. So we have one question. With the current budget challenges due to COVID-19, I think you saw that coming up.
Yeah.
How do we support existing or even expand partnerships while city governments tend to shrink, or at the very least become more unwilling to spend money on what they consider non-essential efforts?
Yeah, excellent question. That's something obviously that we are really trying to address, not just through SAGE, but also through the state of California with other EPIC programs, and even through the entire EPIC network. In fact, we're currently in conversations with the Emergency Operations Services Office, the governor's office, and also FEMA about how we can engage EPIC programs in response to COVID. So maybe tap into some of those resources to help cities I mean, just in the last few weeks, we've reached out to our current and former partners just saying, how can we help? Like, we don't care about the money right now, or we don't have to worry about the money at all. We'll figure it out. Because obviously it's like all hands on deck right now. I mean, certainly we need the support to staff this, because it is a big enterprise, but it's really small staff. It's a mom and pop operation is what I would call it. But there are those kinds of resources that we can tap into, and certainly there's a lot of grant funding that's coming out specifically in response to the COVID crisis that can be directed towards these things. So a lot of our city partners are not even using their general funds to support these kinds of projects. They are relying on grants that they already have anyway. So it's going to be specific grants that they're getting in response to this. But I think there's just going to be this general culture, as there is already in our communities, also across the campuses, of people just wanting to do things to make a difference. And so hopefully we'll have a problem with riches in that regard. So.
Great. So that leads me to a quick second question. What funds are available?
So I haven't, I don't have specific details on those yet, but certainly from FEMA. And I've just in, for my own discipline, which is speech language pathology and linguistics, the NIH is, National Institutes of Health is publishing or announcing all kinds of funding to support COVID right now, of course, related to finding a vaccine and things like that. But there are other things like funding to support telepractice in the health profession. So I think a lot of federal funds are going to just continue to be directed toward recovery efforts, and also trying to avoid getting ourselves into the situation in the first place. So I'm expecting there to be some federal funds, but also I imagine a number of philanthropers and different kinds of private foundations are going to be stepping up efforts in that regard as well.
That's great. I think that's all the time we have for questions, although there are more questions pouring in, mostly concerning how people can, how can people get involved with the SAGE project.
Oh, awesome.
I will just direct the questions to you. And
yeah, that'd be fine. I'm happy to. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, guys, please give a nice silent round of applause to Dr. Jessica Barlow for that amazing presentation.